Greetings, science fiction and fantasy enthusiasts, and welcome to our podcast. With Ryan Sean O'Reilly, David Wilkinson, and Richard Mell. You're listening to No Deodorant in Outer Space. Now, let's get started.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of No Deodorant in Outer Space. My name is Ryan Sean O'Reilly, and joining me on this episode is Richard Mell.
Hello.
And David Wilkinson.
Hey.
This is the second half of our episode where we are covering the movie Stalker that came out in 1979, directed by Andrei Tarkovsky, and starring Alexander Kaidanovsky, which I'm pronouncing horribly. This is based on the book Roadside Picnic that was written by Arkady and Boris Strugatsky, which we covered previously. So, gentlemen, I don't think we have to recover our opening thoughts, which we covered in the earlier part of the episode. Why don't we jump right in and move things along and just get right into the director, do a little bio and background on him, and to get things going. Rick, let's turn to you.
Yeah, Tarkovsky, one of the better-known directors internationally. This movie that we're reviewing tonight I guess it occurs on the British Film Institute's top 50 greatest movies of all time. Comes in at 29. So he's well-respected. I can see why this is a very unique movie. But this movie was seemingly very difficult to make. It was difficult to get funding for the original plan for the movie, especially after they had wasted like about 1,000 hours of taping out in nature, basically.
Yeah, I saw that. They did a lot of exterior shots, and then they came back to develop them, and the technology that they were using, the Russian developers weren't kind of up to speed on that, and all the film,
they weren't up to speed on the Kodak film they used.
Yeah, it came out horribly. So the director got depressed, and I think he was thinking about giving up.
Yeah, and in the propaganda bureaucracy, they wanted to cut ties with the funding of this movie, but then I guess through some... he was just exercising an option that he had. He said that we could make this into a 2-part movie and you can give us more funding. And that's what eventually happened. So
yeah,
I'm sure there was a little bit more than just that, but it sounded like a pretty simple solution. So that's what they went with. And that's what eventually completed this movie. And this movie was filmed in a few places in Russia. And they were like these abandoned hydroelectric plants. And just watching this movie, it goes beyond my imagination how difficult it would be. These guys are kind of wading through muck, and everything's just extremely dirty, and they're like in these dangerous places, really.
Yeah, I think upstream from where they were filming one of the locations, there was some plant that was spewing pollution into the water.
Yeah, upstream, there was poison being led into the river, and then where they were recording, there was just all of this foam on top, and that was toxic. It was literally toxic. And, at one point in this movie, all of the 3 main actors, they're wading through like the sewer. It's just horrendous. And I guess, by the end of the movie and by the end of this guy's career, he ended up dying of a cancer in his left bronchial tube. And, I don't know if this it's
well. Didn't some other
it's
other
not
actors?
Any coincidence that 2 other people on the set died of the same thing. So it would almost suggest that they all kind of died from making this movie, which is kind of depressing. But at least it's recognized as a great movie, and I think it is. I don't really have a whole lot of other information on the director. Let's see. He was like a film school student.
Yeah, I was hearing some interviewer talk about how he probably, because of his schooling, he was exposed to a lot more international films than maybe the average person in Russia. So he must have been talented very early on.
True. Yeah. And it kind of alludes to all of the stereotypes we have about Soviets and how they're sort of picked from a young age to do a very specific job, and it ends up being their career,
But he's held out in very high esteem in international circles, and his films are all widely recognized.
Right. Yeah. He divorced his wife. He did Solaris, which I've never seen. Maybe you guys have.
He did, I think, an earlier version, because I think one came out in 2002, directed by Soderbergh.
He's recognized at the Cannes Film Festival a couple times. Yeah, I mean, he's an important director. It's too bad a lot of his stuff is kind of washed up because we're on in the Western Hemisphere. But yeah, maybe we can do another movie by this guy later on. Although this movie I thought was extremely slow. I mean, that's just kind of like what the overall comment on this, and it's not negative. It's just a lot different. It's not accessible like movies that we're used to. I think the average take in this movie lasted a minute, and there were many takes that went way over 4 minutes. And
it's a lot of long shots, which reminds me of, we watched True Detective that have long shots. We also did Children of Men that had long shots.
Yeah, but
long,
I mean,
continuous
those were
shots.
Extremely different, because in those long shots, there was some amazing action going on and a lot of choreography. In this, it's watching paint dry on the wall. It's nothing like those other two movies.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, then if you got nothing else to add about the director, we can move on to the movie. Wilk, let's go to you. And why don't you give us a summary take on the movie, at least it's in comparison to the book and how it was different, because this movie is different than the book.
I mean, the movie's a very loose rendition of the book.
Yeah.
It's got a zone. It's got a sphere. It's got a daughter named Monkey.
It doesn't even have a sphere. It's got a room.
It's got a room, the sphere in it, or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I had to watch it on goddamn YouTube, which is fucking irritating.
I watched it on my
that's
phone
always
as well.
difficult for you.
Yeah, it's difficult for everyone. And, yeah.
I survived it.
There was one point in the movie where I thought my phone had turned off, and there were specks on my phone that wouldn't come out, but it was just one of the scenes.
Yeah, I don't understand people love this movie so much. I really didn't care for it. It was very Russian. It's very nonsensical. It had subtitles. I would never in a million years watch this movie on my own volition.
It only had subtitles because it was in Russian.
Yeah, so...
Well, in this, and there's really very little sci-fi in the movie, less than the book. And the book doesn't have tons, but it has some. And there's really nothing fantastical that happens in the movie.
Yeah.
You know, they go into this zone area and it gets weird, but it's really, the movie's a series of conversations between three characters.
That's the highlight of the movie, is just insights. There's a lot of poetry.
It's the stalker, and he brings in a writer and a professor. Yeah. And it's the dialogue between the three of them that comprises the bulk of the movie. Some of the interesting things that happen is the professor he acts like he's very passive throughout the whole film. And then at some point it reveals he has, like, what is it, a nuclear bomb?
Yeah.
And when they're in the zone, he's like, the zone is going to be used for evil. So he's part of some organization to, actually blow up the zone. And then the stalker, who's, the character of Red, tries to physically take the bomb away from him. And there's just this physical struggle between them and the writer and the professor. And it ends up in like a sort of a stalemate. And in the end, the professor decides not to blow up the zone. And actually, in the end of this movie, there isn't a sphere, there's a room. It plays the same role because there's a room that supposedly grants all your wishes.
Right.
But they don't go into the room, right?
No.
So they don't actually experience whatever it is that's supposed to grant you the wishes. And there is like an epilogue after they come to the point where, okay, we're at the room now that can grant us all these wishes. There's the writer has supposedly lost inspiration and wants to be re-inspired, and the professor supposedly wants an award, although we find out later that he's there for a secret plot to destroy the place. In the end, they don't go into the zone because they're worried about the zone, or the room in the zone that's going to bring out the worst in them. And I guess they go back to the bar and hang out, and a dog joins them.
It's an art film.
I think I heard some interviewer talk about it. This is like the highest, like, this is like the art film. It's like, it's all the aspects of an art film.
Yeah. Half of it was poetry, and the screenwriting was done by the brothers. Yeah. The two brothers who wrote the story.
I read that they went through almost like 14 iterations of the script.
Can I get this 1 star and go to bed? I don't. This is stupid.
Why is it stupid?
For everything you just said. I'll be the part of the audience. It's like, I don't know, I'm kind of want to cut my eyes out watching this shit. I hate art films.
It wasn't palatable. I'll give you that.
Really?
It was beautiful in many ways. It's just not very accessible. That's all.
Well,
The cinematography
you say
was
accessible. I
breathtaking.
say entertaining.
Yeah,
It's not
entertaining, sure. Yeah,
right.
It
so
wasn't.
I spent an hour plus watching this piece of shit Russian art film. I mean, fuck that. I mean, nobody wants to watch this shit. People just watch this. They can tell people they watch it so they can talk about it. But like, at no point does someone watch this and feel any joy from it. It's just a goddamn. I mean, if you want to do art, put it on a wall. People come look at it. Don't waste film and make me have to sit through it on goddamn YouTube with your fucking subtitles and nonsense.
Subtitles are a challenge for you, Wilk?
It does take your eyes off the movie, but
I'm going to bed. Good
you
night.
have plenty of time to
1 star
to check out a scene as you were reading the subtitles.
Right.
What about the ending? You know, the ending actually something sort of scientific or paranormal happens.
Are we done? Do you guys?
What'd you think about that, Rick?
Do you guys care if I leave?
The paranormal at the ending? I don't remember that. Yeah. Good night, Will.
You don't remember at the very ending, the girl actually uses psychokinesis and moves those cups on the table.
That was the one paranormal scene in the movie, and she's a mutant. So look out. I mean,
that was powerful, I thought.
Yeah, and it just kind of shows you how Redrick is with the Zone, and his name's not even Redrick in the movie, but his character. I mean, he's invested in the Zone. He knows what he knows, and he knows what he doesn't know. But
Do you hate yourself?
He's like one with the Zone because his daughter is the Zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's built his whole living around the Zone. He's got to go in there and guide
people
people into the Zone.
He's in the Zone?
He's in the Zone. Well,
he's in the Zone.
He is in the Zone.
Yeah.
He is in the Zone.
Nobody should watch this movie, guys. Let's talk about something. Do you guys watch Game of Thrones?
Yeah, I saw it. What do you think?
What? Oh man!
Well,
come on, Wilk. You got to actually try sometimes. You can't just be lazy and be like, "Oh, I hated it. I'm done."
I agree. This is very difficult to talk about. The movie and even the book is difficult to talk about.
It's a very dishonest conversation here. You guys are like
dishonest.
You guys are posturing. I mean, you don't have to try and find something good about everything. Just say this. I mean, this is not a good film. It's just it's an art film.
I think it's a beautiful film. If you like art films, you'll love this movie. If you want to be entertained, you're not going to like the movie. It's not a popcorn movie.
It's like
I think Rick makes a good point because I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
Oh God!
If you were in a different mood, if you had some time, maybe if you wanted to reflect on something and produce some art on your own, you might check this out just to be inspired.
If you have a little bit more patience, if you didn't have the patience of a gnat.
Yeah.
Okay, why are you insulting? I'm not insulting you.
I'm not insulting you either, but plenty of people out there don't have time for this shit, and they're not going to see it.
Clearly,
it's very plain and simple.
Well, Arnold Schwarzenegger is not going to be in every movie exploding things.
No, he's not. But everything we do in the show is a waste of time. There's nothing on the show we was necessary. So everything we read, everything we watch is a election of time. It doesn't matter how much time we waste or how much I don't like something. It matters, is it entertaining? It has nothing to do with the book. It's a loose thing in the book. It's just a fucking film.
But it doesn't have to have something to do with the book to be good.
I didn't say it did. I'm saying it has nothing to do with the book. It has a few sentences and phrases and character names, and it's just a goddamn art film. I mean, fine, you guys.
So if there was if Mel Gibson was in it and exploding something, you would have been more happier.
More happier.
What's that?
All right, Wilk, if you want to sign off, I completely understand.
Fine, you're being a fucking okay. I don't give a flying fuck.
Why are you gonna use the F word?
Fuck you, you fucking knocking fucking asshole, piece of shit. Catholic, Republican, Trump.
Oh, here it comes out.
He is Republican, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, yeah. Here it comes out now. Oh,
you know
here
what?
we go.
I'm sitting here doing this stupid bullshit.
Oh, are you? Listen to the sacrifices you're making. Listen to the sacrifices you're making.
Like, don't sit there and insult me about my taste in movies. It's a goddamn
Let's
art
honor
film.
you.
It's a goddamn art film.
We need to honor your sacrifice.
I'm gonna go to bed. Good night, dude.
Wilk signed off. Okay. We gotta do more art films, huh? You can't say anything bad about the film. It's not a conventional film. You know, you have to be ready for it. You have to have like the intellectual patience. And you got to have an open mind.
Or maybe you have to have the time for it. You can't be watching it half distracted. You know, you got to. It's a slower paced film.
Don't expect any fast paced action, but expect to learn something possibly, and I think you'll be okay. And you know, it was beautifully shot. even though it was like...
It really is beautifully shot. Yeah. It's amazing. Like, just the cinematography. I mean, when there's some scene where the camera's going over like a stream and you're seeing like junk in the stream. And I'm just like, wow, this is so compelling. And it's just like junk in a stream.
And, it's going to take patience. You really got to be in the right mood to take this movie in. Not that I completely was today. I mean, there was a lot of things going on. But, I mean, I enjoyed it. I don't recommend it for everyone, though, unfortunately, because everyone is sort of programmed to be thrilled, which is unfortunate.
But the book is subtle. It's a subtle book, right? There's not a lot of explosions and bombastic stuff going on. There is occasionally some scenes of action in the book. So the movie is not so tonally different than the book that it would throw you off.
No, I think, the characters' names are different. The characters are coming from different occupations than they were in the book, but it does touch on kind of like the low class, the middle class, and the upper class. The professor is perceived to be from the upper class, but really he is upper class, but he's not actually a professor. He's just kind of like a religious zealot. So it captures all of the perceptions that are in the book. It just kind of takes them on this one long scene, basically in the zone. There's just a fraction of the movie is taken outside the zone, and it's very sequential, where the book is told in 4 different parts from 4 different perspectives about the same story. This is pretty linear. It's just the conversations within the...
And I think the brothers are known for, I think they mess with time, and everything's not usually linear.
Yeah, well, in the book, obvious. Yeah. In the movie,
but I felt like the movie is not so different tonal than the
it's the same tone. It's pretty bleak, and everyone is just humbled because everyone realizes, in the book and even in the movie, that they have no idea. Everything's up for grabs, and the only thing you've got is your own objective in your own life, and it's...
I was reading that Tarkovsky kept telling them to rewrite the scripts, the brothers, and they kept rewriting it, and they said, I think he ended up just going with the last script that they did, and I think he had them keep taking out sci-fi elements, and the movie does have a lack of sci-fi elements.
I'm not disturbed by that, though, and I'm not looking for sci-fi stuff. It's a sci-fi concept, but yeah, I mean, this is a concept that should be discussed. If you're a futurist or someone who looks into potential contingencies that affect the planet, then this would be of interest to you, because it's not about the technology. It's about the society around the concept. It's about the reactions. It's about the feelings and the philosophies and what the different classes are doing, and how people are used for such a phenomenon. So it's kind of like a futurist sort of what if kind of deal, and it really just sort of contemplates the meaning of life, and no one has the answer to that. I mean,
it does, and the book does that too, and so that rings true. But I did feel myself waiting and wanting for some supernatural elements to come in, and I guess at the end they did. It wasn't much, but they did a little bit.
I'm not disappointed though.
And I was very happy at the end when they did do the little bit of supernatural with the telekinesis or whatever with the daughter. And to me, that was a powerful way to end it.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. How was it powerful?
Just to show that there was something to the zone. It wasn't just all talk.
Yeah.
Because in watching the movie, it gets weird with them coming and going in these different areas, and it's like, are they here? Are they there? And it gets weird, but it doesn't have a lot of concrete in the weird.
I mean,
it gets very abstract, and that was more concrete at the end.
Yeah. I mean, the movie was done with a tight budget. They weren't able to do any kind of practical special effects, as Wilk would say, but yeah, they did what they could do. It's just not the point of the movie. It's not to thrill you with any visuals that are out of the ordinary. It's not about that. It's really just about how people handle themselves when they absolutely realize that they're completely fucking clueless in life. And it's like, you just got to take care of yourself, make your bed in the morning and go out and just try and be self-reliant and take care of the people you love, I think is what it comes down to. But
then that's big. I think the brothers, the Tarkovsky brothers are big on self-reliance. I think that was a theme that they pushed a lot.
Well,
this alien thing happened.
It's a communist
but
theme, right? I mean, believe it or not, it's a communist theme that is encouraged, or it was at least. Otherwise, you really wouldn't be able to build a society if people were not self-reliant. But I mean, there's a lot of complaints about in the book and in the movie. There's absolutely nothing to do if you didn't have this zone. Okay, you would be working stiff. But that's the way people feel in a capitalist society. So, and that gets confused a lot, I think. The book is not set in a communist society. It's set in a capitalist society. It's actually kind of ambiguous. But the fact that they mention the United Nations and the fact that the zone is participating in the United Nations program suggests that they're part of some kind of international capitalism going on.
Although I would say, it's odd because you don't have any international elements in the book, really, except for, I guess, those mentioned you talk about. But like, if they has this strange alien zone, why don't they have other countries coming in and examining it? Or like, if you do, they don't get into that.
Well, I mean, there are.
It's very, it feels like a very insulated story, doesn't it?
It isn't. No, it's not insulated because you've got players coming in from other countries. That's clear. Because, I mean, you look at the names of the characters.
You got people coming in to check out the area.
You have Germans, you have Irishmen, you have Russians, you have people of different ethnic makeups in the book. It's not a Russian-based book. The movie was Russian-based, but not the book. The movie was scrubbed by the Soviets, basically to extol, I would think, their approved ideology. The book, not so much. The book was a little bit dirtier. I still felt like
the book was a little bit more claustrophobic, considering it's like an alien visit. I mean, I guess maybe because there's 6 other zones. There's other zones for people to study, but it did feel a little bit.
Oh yeah,
I mean, maybe because it
felt claustrophobic.
It's Red Story.
And Will talks about world building. I mean, the world is pretty clear in the book. The world is not clear at all in the movie. It's more about like the ideas that come up in the movie through their conversations and through they're constantly reciting poetry that reflects their situations and their confusion.
Which is typical. I mean, we do that all the time.
And that's extremely claustrophobic because you're really kind of living inside the minds of like 3 guys that are, crawling around in the zone. The book is a lot more kind of integrated across the world. I mean, it's more worldly, I should just say.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe more than the movie, but I still felt like it wasn't real worldly. I mean, you don't have these like international.
I don't know. I don't know if you got the part where Noonan is talking to a United Nations general, and they're basically taking kind of like an overall snapshot of the situations across the world and all of the zones. And Redrick is just a little tool that is, in the microscope of like this overriding program.
Is that the guy who gets mad at Noonan for saying like, you think you know what's going on, but you have no idea that they're still going into the zone?
Yeah. He points Noonan into the direction of the Vulture to investigate what's going on with the Vulture. But that I believe is left unresolved in the story. It just gives you perspective that Noonan is a double agent, but he completely respects where Redrick is coming from, and he respects his whole profession. He respects Redrick, and he's not willing to throw him under the bus because he's smuggling out, alien paraphernalia. And he's going against the grain of the program, but Noonan is looking the other way for Redrick's sake. That's the human element there.
Now, let me point out here another important contrast in the book and the movie is that in the movie, the Stalker, Red, he's looking for traps in the zone to avoid them, but he's not going in there. He's not going in there to find alien artifacts and bring them out. He's guiding people in there to go to the room to get like almost like a spiritual awakening or to get their wishes granted. And then they talk, and don't they talk about how someone does go in there and get their wishes granted, but then when they come out, they get all this money and they kill themselves?
Yeah. In the movie, Redrick talks about his acquaintance, the Porcupine, who came out of the zone without Redrick's younger brother, whom died in the zone. But, this guy, the Porcupine, comes out of the zone a rich man because that was his wish. But he dies very soon after that because he could have used the wish to bring his brother back. But that would be impossible because that wasn't the Porcupine's innermost desire. And how just horrible is that? You can't live with yourself after you have reaped so much success out of an event like that. And he ends up hanging himself. And that's just a human story. I mean, that's horrendous. But I kind of,
it's crazy. It's crazy.
It's crazy, but it does reflect reality, unfortunately. And it's just a commentary on the greed that surrounds opportunities like this.
So it shows you the depth of this film.
Yeah. Well,
I
mean, I didn't really understand all of the poetry. I didn't give it all of my focus. I should have. It's one of those types of movies where if you're not willing to do that, then you're kind of wasting your time, and you'd probably react to it like Wilk would. But I mean, I sense that there's something good and enriching here. So, I mean, I've already told myself I'd reread the book, and there's a lot to get out of this stuff. It's good stuff. It's good seeing the perspective from someone who's been living under communism for their whole lives. And, there's a whole other world, on the other side of the globe, and they think very similarly to all of the things that were drilled into us. It's just from a slightly different perspective, and there are subtle differences, but you can tell it has its communist fingerprint because it's really going into the mindset of the proletariat, and that wouldn't be the case if it were originating from Europe or Western Europe or the United States.
It's a very beautiful film, and we kind of rushed to get through the book and through this film, but I felt the weight to it. It was beautifully done. It's a slower moving pace, but if you have the patience for it, it's a good watch. So why don't we just wrap things up here? We've already lost one of our compatriots here. Wilk, he gave his rating.
My advice is try and see this movie and try and read this book when you are alone. Zero distractions. I'm usually kind of zoned in the morning, and that's when I suggest whenever you're sort of like on top of everything, and when you're in the zone, then go to the zone, basically. Because if you're distracted in any way, you're just going to blow this thing off.
Yeah. How many stars would you give this film?
I'd have to give it like 4.5. I can't give it 5 just because I don't know other art films that well, and I don't know exactly if this is the best or not. It's just I think it's a beautiful film, and I can see why it's on the top of the British Film Institute list. There's a lot there. It's kind of it's a treasure, and if you got the time, check it out.
I'm going to agree with you, and I'm going to echo your comment. I was kind of vacillating about whether or not to give this film 5 stars, given, I don't know, on the context of Wilk's strong stance.
I mean, his stance is strong from a consumer's, point of view. I mean, this film's not going to sell millions of copies.
Well, so for myself, I will echo your comment and give it 4.5 stars. It's very good. I really consider about giving this 5 stars. I'm going to, I guess, pull back a little bit and give it 4.5. because it did feel a little bit slow at times, but it is really beautifully done. The cinematography, like I've already said that a couple times, it's just beautiful. Even just the shots of just the visuals of these sort of dystopian.
It's not even dystopian
panoramas.
Yeah, they don't get into dystopia a lot. It's just a lot of it's just nature and ruins of kind of like mechanized industrial era.
All right, Rick. All right.
So that's how it's dystopian. But I think most of it's like natural, the chaos.
But
of
even
nature.
like the factories and all that, and the tunnels and everything that they show, it's very just beautifully done, and just the lighting and everything is just it's compelling, even in its slowness and its lack of like explosions or actions, as I facetiously was saying to Will. It still is compelling, and I think you're right. You just need to be in the right frame of mind to check it out and be open to it. So yeah, worth checking out if you're in the right frame of mind. With that, I will invite everyone to join us next month when we cover our next episode, which is going to be based on the book The Lathe of Heaven that came out in 1971 by Ursula K. Le Guin. There are 2 film versions of this we're going to cover. The Lathe of Heaven, released in 1980, directed by David Loxton and Fred Barzyk, starring Bruce Davison, and a version that came out in 2002, directed by Philip Haas and starring James Caan. So, join us for that episode, and in the meantime, you can visit us at nodeodorant.com or subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn Radio, Google Play Music, various other places you can find podcasts. We're also on YouTube. We have a feed there. We have a Facebook page. Feel free to like our Facebook page or follow us on Twitter. We appreciate any and all comments, and we ask people to subscribe and to write comments and give us a rating. Until next time, for just the two of us, since we lost one of our compatriots on the way, I will say farewell.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Sleep tight.
For more information on the topics discussed in this episode, or to read our show notes and find us on social media, visit nodeodorant.com. For more information on Ryan Sean O'Reilly and his various works of fiction, visit ryanseano'reilly.com. For more information on David Wilkinson, visit drycracker.com. For more information on Richard Mell, check out his profile at goodreads.com. The theme music for this podcast was written by John Doyle from the band I Decline. You can visit him at i-decline.com. Voiceover for this podcast was provided by me, Margaret O'Reilly. Well, that concludes our episode. We hope you've learned a lot. Again, thanks for listening to our show. And always, always remember, there is no deodorant in outer space.
Yeah.
I have WAV files in my movie file. Rick, do you have WAV files?
Affirmative.
You're recording?
Yeah, give me
All right.
give me a minute.
Wilk, do you have WAV files?
Yep.
Okay. Something happened to Rick. Are you're having a beer, right, Wilk?
Yeah, can we wrap this up? Let's go.
Uh-oh.
Hello?
I think we continued